Hi, hello, hi. I'm back again with one of these sort of videos. The surprise, it was quite a surprise to see the Marvel 2 video do so well for this channel, and the amount of comments I got. It was really heartwarming to read. I loved reading every single one of them. It was really fun seeing people being like, "Oh, I actually keep playing with my friends. We play through Fightcade, or I actually have a Dreamcast copy to this day." Or, "Oh, I actually tried learning this game recently through Fightcade and it was quite fun." Or people even talking about other games they've been playing through this similar methods, basically, through Fightcade. I mentioned Street Fighter 3 and UMK 3 in that video, and a lot of people related to that as well. So here I am with the Street Fighter 3 video, as I mentioned in the Marvel 2 video. Street Fighter 3 is, I feel like, it's easier to talk about because it's Street Fighter. I know it's a meme, but it's basically the footsie game. It's the base fighting game, the core fighting game, the fighting game that started it all, right? I know it's Street Fighter 2 rather than 3, but you know, it's similar. The base was there. Now Street Fighter 3 is an improvement on that. So talking about Street Fighter 3, I feel like it's easier than Marvel 2. And Street Fighter 3, I've actually played a whole lot more than Marvel 2 when I was making that video. Street Fighter 3, I played, I think it was 2021. I think I figured how to run Fightcade. I still had the crappy laptop from those early days on the channel, if you remember those. But yeah, don't watch those older videos. They're not good. Not at all. But I was playing Fightcade through that computer. I plugged the controller and I started playing that. Now with the arcade stick, I had a sense of like I was actually in an arcade playing Third Strike. It felt very genuine. It felt like, oh, I'm in an arcade setting playing with an arcade stick. Obviously, I'm online in my home, right? But it was quite fun playing Third Strike now with a new controller, with a new experience entirely, sort of simulating the original experience for Third Strike. In terms of getting into Third Strike, I think this is far easier than Marvel 2. I think Marvel 2 you can definitely get into it, but Street Fighter I think is easier to comprehend compared to Marvel. There are less shenanigans going on than in Marvel. Like, I love Marvel shenanigans, obviously, as anyone does in a tag fighter. But let's be honest, there is a lot of shit going on in Marvel compared to Street Fighter, which is just you and your opponent and no tag, no full screen super, no crazy air jump mobility. It's all boots on the ground, right? So it's easier to understand for your average fighting game player. What's so interesting about Third Strike? You know, the Third Strike is like the game that the Street Fighter that people keep talking about. It never stops. In 5K, I think it's the most popular game. It has the most amount of members. Why is that? What's so captivating even to this day? What's the sauce, right? What does Street Fighter 3 do? Starting off from like the very basic, the game's beautiful. Like, the animation in this game is absolutely stunning. The sprite work is absolutely gorgeous. You can see it in every attack, like really strong attacks. You can see the clothes like pushing back and the movement and the sound design too. It's absolutely beautiful. It's definitely one of those 2D fighters that's probably one of the prettiest ones ever made. I know there are, in the 2000s, there are still some sprite-based games from King of Fighters that are absolutely beautiful as well. But for Street Fighter, I think this is like peak Street Fighter it has ever looked. I think this even looks better than Marvel 2. I sung my praises for Marvel 2, but I think the animation quality for this game is far bigger. So definitely a very beautiful fighting game. The other thing as well is it's so interesting because the roster is very unique. Now, all these things I'm mentioning at the time, you probably heard this before, but at the time, they were definitely not appreciated very much. The late 90s were basically the, oh, 3D, yes, we love 3D, whoa, look at all those polygons, yes, and Capcom's doing a 2D sprite work fighting games. But at the time, they probably thought it was like dated and stupid. And the roster didn't help either, because the roster is full of quote-unquote freaks, as they were called back then. There were loads of characters that people knew jack shit about. They were new characters, the only characters in Third Strike that come from the earlier games. Chun-Li, Ken and Ryu, well, and Akuma as well. but the rest are completely new faces, and in its own way, these characters, most of them anyway, they have come back in future Street Fighters. Particularly Street Fighter 4 gave them a lot of loves to people like Dudley or Makoto or Yoon and Yang. Never since. Well, Ibuki has been around, but and Elena now too. Yeah, this has been recorded after Street Fighter 6 DLC Season 2, so Elena's coming back. So that's cool. But the other thing is particularly the roster is so weird. Like, weird in a good way, in my opinion. Like, yeah, sure, I main Ken, I'm a basic bitch, but I trying to secondary Dudley because he's so interesting. Do we have boxers now in Street Fighter 5, Street Fighter 6? Yes, but Dudley is so cool. He comes out of a car in his intro. His taunt is throwing you a rose, and it buffs his combos. And he's British. Well, maybe that bit's not that cool. But he's cool. He looks cool, and I want him in Street Fighter 6. But that's another aspect of this whole game's appeal. The roster is so unique. Sure, the top tiers are Chun-Li and Yoon and Ken, maybe characters that you see pretty often, but the rest of the roster is still very interesting. I think the rest of the roster is very, very cool as well. Getting a little bit more into the gameplay side of things, the thing that has absolutely been mentioned to death, and I will still mention it here, parries. But parries are definitely the mechanic that make Third Strike and, well, the whole Street Fighter 3 lineup so unique. Third Strike just so happens to be the one where parry feels the most satisfying, the most rewarding, and the coolest to do. And New Generation and Second Impact, you had parries, but they were kind of funky. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels weird. Maybe it's the Third Strike muscle memory at this point, but they feel weird. And Third Strike being the definitive version of Street Fighter 3, parries are absolutely amazing in this game. They are very rewarding. Not impossible to pull off. Like, you might see very few parries in this footage. That's because I suck. But honestly, like, reading the parry, the frame window and all that, it's like, yeah, that doesn't sound impossible. I just need to learn what that window is in real time, in game. Like, reading it's like, oh, that makes sense, but I can still pull it off. But parrying is definitely the most unique mechanic in a Street Fighter game up to that point. Now, sure, Street Fighter 6 also has it, but it functions very differently. So that's why it was such a huge deal that parries were coming back. Sure, Street Fighter 4 had focus, and Street Fighter 5 had B-trigger, and some characters in 5 had a parry in their B abilities, particularly Ryu and I think Gil. But seeing it come back as a universal mechanic, that's why it was so crazy. That's why personally it was so hype, having parries back. You know, you're fighting, you can parry an attack and pull your counter. Like you start your reversal options. It's so sick. So that's particularly what makes these games so unique compared to other Street Fighters and other fighters, period. Back in this time, not many fighters had a parry. Sure, you could block, sure you had reversal options, but the parry and the parry sound effect and the visual and all that opens up when you parry, and even when you're parrying multiple times too, that's when it gets the hypest. That's why, you know, we got Evo Moment 37. But the game's it's not parry the video game, you know, like outside of that, the whole idea of comboing into Super, being able to pull off the different ways the inputs work in this game as well. You know, the typical, oh, if you're maining Ken, you know, crouch medium kick, Hadouken, and if you do another Hadouken input, the Super comes out. You know, that's sort of canceling the way it revolutionized the way inputting will work in future Street Fighters. That all started here. It's like, sure, Street Fighter 2 was a basis. Alpha was a different spin on Street Fighter, you know, a more fast-paced, so anime-style Street Fighter. And Third Strike, well, I say Third Strike, but you know, I mean Street Fighter 3. It basically became a new foundation for future Street Fighters. It basically meant, hey, we're gonna change the systems, but in a way that you might not realize if you're just playing Street Fighter for the sake of it. But if you look into it, you'll find it far more interesting, far more comfortable, far easier to do. I say that, but I still suck at doing this method of inputting. Like, sure, I try canceling Hadouken into Super by doing a single other Hadouken, but I just mash the analog stick and the buttons. I'm like, please come out. And sure, it does, but I'm not doing it in the optimal, professional way. I just mash. But that's basically me. If you know this channel, you know I'm a masher. So, but that's what makes these games so unique. The combination of visuals, the combination of parrying and supers and all you can do with these characters. These characters have a lot of expression and they're also different from one another. Sure, you have 3 Shotos, technically 4 with Sean, I guess, but we don't talk about Sean, apparently he sucks in the game. But they all behave differently, even if, again, they're all Shotos. Sure, Ken and Ryu still had basically the same moves. Maybe Ken starts to use kicks a little bit more here. But they're still really similar, but even then your game plan with Ryu is gonna be completely different than your game plan with Ken, and especially with Akuma. They're all different game plans. Projectiles here don't have the same presence as they did back in Super Turbo, for example, or they will in Street Fighter 4, or 5, or 6. Projectiles are not bad, but throwing them in neutral is not that useful because, you know, you have the parry, and parrying projectiles is actually very easy. So projectiles become more this extension of your combo now, rather than this almighty neutral controller tool. So it redefines Street Fighter. That's why people keep coming back to this. It's a very different Street Fighter. Even now with Street Fighter 6, you have the parry, but you also have Drive Rush and Drive Impact. It's basically like a culmination of all the Street Fighters. In Third Strike, you have parry, red parry. You can only pick one super, and the super you pick will determine your bar that you use for either EX moves or super. You can whiff normals and increase your bar. It's so unique. It's so unique, and obviously it's so iconic throughout fighting game history, you know, because of Evo and Moment 37 and what people, the huge turnaround it had. You know, at the arcades when it came out, it's like, oh, whatever, fuck it. Oh, Tekken has 3D, whoa! And I like Tekken now. Thanks to Tekken 8, I do like Tekken. But it's a huge comeback story. It's the little Street Fighter underdog. Now it comes back and it becomes one of the most popular Street Fighters, one of the most popular fighting games. So, do get into this one. Like, I said for Marvel 2 as well, because I admire Marvel 2 so much. But if you can get into Marvel 2 with Fightcade, you can absolutely do it with Street Fighter 3. Street Fighter 3's Fightcade community is absolutely massive. You'll find games in no time. I find games, I'm in Argentina, and there's people from South America there. You can see the country for each player in Fightcade. You'll absolutely find someone to play with. So please do get into Street Fighter 3 if you're at the very least interested. It doesn't cost you anything, it's Fightcade. If you want to support Capcom in a monetary way, you have the 30th anniversary collection, which sadly I do hear it has some input jankiness, something about the inputs not being arcade perfect compared to Fightcade, where you will have the peak arcade experience. You will have the game in Japanese, so I do recommend looking up either move guides or something to know what your super will be. Sure, now I know Ken Super 3, you know, or Dudley. I'm still not sure what super I should be using, but I know what each one does. But you will not know in your first time around if you're using Fightcade because it's in Japanese. So, you know, get a Wikipedia or fight whatever. I don't remember the name, sorry. But you can get into this, even if it's an older Street Fighter. Do please get into it. It's really, really fun. It's a really good time. The roster is very unique compared to the Street Fighter rosters we get now. I love Street Fighter 6's roster, but I am very excited for Terry, Mai, Elena, and Bison. I'm not a Charge fan. I'm not a Charge character fan, but from what I've seen from Bison, I want to play Bison. But I would have liked to see Street Fighter 3's characters in there, because this game was the end of the storyline. Like, it was the last storyline game for so long, and now 6 finally goes past it. It would be nice to see Makoto, I don't know how many years later 6 is, let's say 5, Makoto 5 years later, Dudley 5 years later, Remy, fucking 12. 12 will be hilarious. 12 it sucks in Third Strike. He'll be so funny in 6, I think. Imagine 12 drive rushing you while he does his stupid dance. He'll be sick. But yeah, is it possible to learn Street Fighter 3 in 2024? Absolutely. I think the tools you have and the way Street Fighter works, you absolutely can. It's I don't want to say it's easier than Marvel 2, but you probably have more tools than in Marvel 2. Marvel 2 is far more complex, I think, because, you know, it's a 3v3. You have tag, you have a fuckload more characters. But Street Fighter 3, it doesn't have... Sure, you have like your meta and your workflow and what you should be doing with a character. But you have so many choices, so many playstyles, even within a character, that you can go wild and be very creative. I find it to be one of the most creative Street Fighters. So if you're interested at all, do please get into it. It's, again, Fightcade, collections, whatever. PS3 and 360 online version if you still have that. It even has challenges. I would like to play that version one day, mainly to run through the challenges, because I hear the Evil Moment 37 is one of the challenges, so I would like to try that. I just need to find a way to run it on a PS3 emulator. But again, if you're interested, do get into it. Don't be a coward. Get into it. Once again, thank you so much for the support in the Marvel 2 video. It was very heartwarming to see. I was shocked by the views, but I was very happy to read all the comments. It was really heartwarming, and I hope to see you guys talk about it as well with Third Strike. If you have any stories, do feel free to share. Not only Third Strike, New Generation, Second Impact. Feel free to share your stories with those. Feel free to ask anything about Street Fighter. And do let me know what other game I could talk about in this manner. If you like this method, it's very unscripted, very my own thoughts. If you're interested at all, it doesn't have to be a 90s game. It could. We're in 2024. I feel like 2000s, even 2010s games count at this point as retro. I don't know, I could talk about Mortal Kombat 9. That's something I played a lot as a kid. I could talk about UMK3, as I mentioned a few times already. I could talk about Melee again. I could talk about Smash 64. I could do anything. So if you have any suggestions, and I happened to play it, do let me know. Feel free to share. Thank you so much for watching this and the Marvel video. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'm very happy that you guys are here, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.